and welcome to this Real Estate Live event. We're now Real Estate Live in our fourth week over the last year, and around 10,000 people have attended our events over that time, so you're in good company. This event that we're about to have today, welcome to that. It is all about Belfast and how Belfast tourism strategy is driving regeneration. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to our Belfast studio, where our chair, David Elliott of Lanyon Group, is waiting to entertain you. David.
Thank you, Ross, and good morning, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to Belfast. We have a brilliant session lined up for you today, which will be delving into Belfast cultural, tourism and investment offering. Now, you don't need me to tell you that a strong cultural tourism offering is essential for any global city, particularly when it comes to attracting investment. That's particularly true in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, when the thirst for tourism-led regeneration is very real and the competition for the tourist dollar has never been as strong. Belfast has one of the strongest cultural tourism draws of any city in the world, and one which is set to see a tourism sector which is already booming before the pandemic recover and grow to new heights. Now, the central themes of that success will be the axis of Belfast City Council's tourism and culture strategy, which will promote the basis for the sector's growth in the coming years and rubber stamp the investment case around cultural tourism. It comes at a timely juncture, exactly 10 years since Titanic Belfast first opened its doors, fueling huge growth in tourism-led regeneration and investment, which has culminated in the creation of at least 9 new hotels. As a follow-on from that particular outperforming asset, the council has plans to design and deliver a new destination hub for the city, funded by the Belfast Region City deal. It'll create reasons to stay longer in the city and also regenerate the central artery around Royal Avenue, which is close to the new Ulster University campus. So as Belfast emerges from the pandemic, it's clear it has a cultural and tourism offering which is second to none, and which has been emboldened by new vision, one which strengthens the investment case beyond measure. Today, we're going to find out more about Belfast cultural tourism and investment offering from our eclectic panel, who will be able to give us a deep dive into this sector's potential. Our panel consists of John Greer, who's Director of Economic Development at Belfast City Council, Kerry Sweeney, who's Chief Executive of the Maritime Belfast Trust, Jerry Lennon, who's Chief Executive of Visit Belfast, and Susan Pickin, who's Director of Cathedral Quarter Trust and Culture Night Belfast. Before we hear from them, we're going to have a short video to give you a flavour of what Belfast has to offer.
Time to embrace the giant spirit of Belfast. Visit discovernorthernireland.com.
So you have a flavour there of Belfast. First of all, I want to turn to John Greer. John, set the scene for us. What does Belfast have to offer from a tourism and cultural perspective, and how does it compare to other destinations?
Well, I think Belfast is unique when it's compared to other destinations, and I think it's unique because of our history, heritage and culture. Belfast for a long time was well known around the world, probably for some of the wrong reasons. But beneath that understanding, there was a lack of understanding about other stories of Belfast, the story of music, the story of culture, the story of innovation, the story of sports in Belfast. And often when people come to Belfast, they are finding that out for the first time. And that is why there has been a burgeoning interest in Belfast. And there is a real optimism in Belfast now. And there is a real optimism and confidence around how unique our stories are. And that has been articulated now with fantastic attractions like the Titanic Museum, the Maritime Mile that Kerry's going to talk more about. And of course, the culmination of that will be, as you reference, the Belfast Destination Hub, which will essentially be a centre for the collection of the stories of Belfast and will feature dynamic, curated material that articulates what is unique about Belfast. And that will be supported by a range of other attractions that City Council and partners across the city are bringing forward. So the plans for Belfast are really exciting. There is a confidence that is being reflected in the investment market and the investment that has came to Belfast in tourism. And we're uniquely situated. We are close to GB, we're close to Western Europe, and we're a relatively small place. So visitors can have a distinctly urban experience and within minutes then be in green and open spaces and be connected to a range of other attractions across Northern Ireland and across Ireland. So Belfast is ideally positioned to act as a gateway city for tourism across the whole island.
Quite a proposition there. Give us an idea of how valuable tourism is to Belfast and indeed to Northern Ireland.
I think tourism is hugely valuable. Was hugely valuable prior to the global pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, more than $500 million of our GVA was coming through tourism. Our National Tourism Development Agency, Tourism Northern Ireland, had a target to take that to £1 billion of GVA. They, just prior to the pandemic, actually extended that target to 2 billion of GVA, which I think gives a sense of the confidence in the market. And those targets are not based on a desire, they are based on hard data and facts about the nature of the capacity within the marketplace. And that data is because at current rates, Northern Ireland GVA and the tourism take of GVA is 2.3%. When you look at Wales, that figure is 5.3%. So there is room to double our tourism take, even if we compare ourselves to Wales and we don't extend beyond that. Now, being from Belfast and being from Northern Ireland, I'm of the opinion that we have a better story than Wales and other markets. But of course, I would say that. But tourism is extremely valuable. It has a huge amount of growth potential, and it's hugely important for us in jobs. There are 19,000 people working in the tourism sector. The growth in employment in the tourism sector has been 19%. That's almost double the employment growth in any of our other employment sectors. And you referenced in your introduction the fact that there were a number of investments made in hotels in Belfast, 8 hotels. In any other market, that would have quite a displacement effect with the existing stock. And it, quite frankly, it didn't. And I think that's a signal to investors that there is room to grow in the market, that there is confidence in the market, and that there's a huge opportunity by investing in Northern Ireland, and there's definitely room to grow.
Certainly that offer is attracting stars, and we've seen Wayne Rooney being in one of our local hostelries only yesterday, pictured on social media. Really interested in that potential that you talk about there, the difference between Wales and Northern Ireland. That's something that we all should be pretty proud of. I want to talk about the Belfast Region City Deal because it's something that we've all heard about a lot in the past. It has the potential to be a real game changer for Northern Ireland and for Belfast. How will it help drive and support cultural tourism here?
Well, as I've said, GVA is at 2.3%. We believe there's room to grow. That's because we are a relatively new tourism market, and we need to invest in our tourism product. One of the challenges that we have in Belfast in Northern Ireland is dwell time. Yes, we're getting a lot of visitors. Yes, people are coming here, but they are not staying as long as we want them to. And that is because we are not giving them a rich enough set of experiences for them to stay here. We have great assets like the Maritime Mile and the Titanic Museum, which are real anchor reasons for people to come to Belfast and dwell in Belfast. But we need to add more to that. And the Belfast City Region Deal is investing £100 million in the Belfast Destination Hub, which will be a great complementary attraction to the Maritime Mile and the Titanic Museum. But there are other investments being made across the region, right down as far as Newry and right up as far as Carrickfergus. And what that will create is a rich pathway of experiences that consumers can come to Belfast in Northern Ireland and enjoy for longer. And ultimately, they will benefit from having a rich, coherent experience in Northern Ireland. And here, we will benefit from the job and GVA growth. But for investors, that offers a fantastic potential, because as people stay here longer, they're going to need to have richer ancillary services, more hotels of which to use and enjoy.
Really interesting. So yeah, getting them here is half the battle, but you've also got to make them stay longer and to be able to spend more as well. You mentioned there the destination hub, and there's a nice slide up behind to give us an artist's impression of it. Give us a little bit more detail on that if you could.
As I said at the beginning, Belfast is famous for a lot of things, and for a period of time was probably best known for one thing. And we think that there's a job to do in telling those stories, and we think those stories are incredibly authentic, but fantastically interesting to tourists and consumers, and actually to the local market as well. We probably need to do a little bit of learning about ourselves. So the Belfast Destination Hub will essentially, it will not be a museum. It will be a live telling of the story of Belfast and telling the story of the people. It will be about the people, so it will encapsulate stories, artifacts, experiences that allow visitors and people who are from Belfast and Northern Ireland to come and learn more about Belfast in a really rich experience. The site itself, it will be an iconic site. It will be subject to an international architectural competition. So as well as the Belfast story, you will have an incredible surrounding area of public realm. You will have a gallery space, and you will have an authentic food and beverage offering. So in terms of dwell time, this is really giving people an opportunity to come to this attraction and spend a day, half a day there, learning about Belfast, then going and experiencing the food of Belfast in Northern Ireland, then going and engaging in culture and the arts of Belfast and Northern Ireland. So we're really excited about this. It's going to be a fantastic experience, and we think that it's going to be one of the biggest attractions, probably in Western Europe, if not the world, at its time of opening.
Give us an idea of the timescales for the project and how, I suppose, potential investors could get involved.
Well, I think the timescale for the opening of the Destination Hub is 2027. That is quite a good time, because, as we know, COVID-19 has had a significant impact on the tourism market. Some of the forecasts are suggesting a return to 2019 levels in 2023. That gives us a 4-year window to build tourism, but also to build the network of attractions that will feed in to the Belfast Destination Hub. So I think what we're trying to do is, alongside the Titanic Museum, Maritime Mile, other attractions, the Belfast Destination Hub, if you like, will be an anchor visitor attraction where we will have coherent visitor attractions and visitor trails spiraling out from the Belfast Destination Hub, the Titanic Museum, developing coherent visitor experience pathways. For investors, that increase in tourism, that increase in dwell time, allows them an opportunity to think about how they may invest and build businesses and ancillary services to support those visitor experience trails, and ultimately benefit from the greater amount of visitors that are undoubtedly going to come to Belfast, and the greater time those visitors are going to spend in Belfast.
Sounds like a really deep offering there, and something to look forward to, and well timed as well. You've mentioned there a couple of times the maritime offering, and I want to turn to Kerry next. But before we do that, we have a little video just to set the scene for us.
I'll wait to see your golden smile, feel of 1,000 kisses. Oh, please stay a while. feels like a handful of silk now. I'm in your warm embrace. Oh, I hope this feeling lasts till the oceans turn to glass and the world around us turns and fades to black. Together we'll hold back the sun in this moment forever.
Kerry, you can nearly smell the sea from that video. Give us a flavour of how the Belfast Maritime Trust has come about and what are its aims?
So we're a charity. We were set up in 2007 primarily with the purpose to develop Titanic Belfast. We received 76 million from public and private sector into developing an international visitor attraction that would drive a step change in tourism coming up to the centenary of Titanic, which was in 2012. So we finished the building on time, on budget. It was opened on the 31st of March 2012. We appointed a commercial operator who have done an amazing job. They have smashed all of their targets. We have achieved 6 million visitors over the first 8 years of operations. 65% of those visitors are from outside of the UK. 1 in 5 of our visitors to Titanic Belfast have come to Ireland because of the Titanic story. So it has just been success beyond success. With the income that has come with Titanic Belfast, we never thought that we would get so much return from the building itself, but we did as a charity, and with that income we have then reinvested into other heritage assets along Belfast's iconic waterfront. We have taken on ownership of SS Nomadic, which is the original tender ship to RMS Titanic, so built by Harrington Wolff, a 110-year-old ship, now a visitor attraction. We took it on in 2015. It now has had over 1 million visitors to it. In 2017, we worked with private developers to develop the Harrington Wolff headquarter building. It was a listed building, 30 years derelict, decayed, on the building at risk register. We secured funding through private developers, through Heritage Lottery, restored it. It's now a luxury boutique hotel. And we have also worked with Titanic Quarter Limited on the public realm improvements across the area. The video showed a new pathway that is along our waterfront that also features what we call the Great Light. It's a 130-year-old lighthouse optic. It's one of the rarest and largest of its kind in the world. So all of these extraordinary things are happening along Belfast waterfront. Last year we actually rebranded from, our original name was Titanic Foundation. We rebranded to the Maritime Belfast Trust in recognition that not to leave Titanic behind, it's still very much part and parcel of what we do, but to recognise the huge potential of Belfast maritime story. And the journey is just beginning. There's just so many exciting things happening.
It's really interesting to see, for somebody that that's been around Belfast for quite a few years now, how the city has really put its arms around the waterfront and really embraced it. And it's such great work that you've been doing. Can you give us a flavour of the plans that are in the pipeline for around the maritime area and how they kind of fit with the wider tourism plans?
Yeah, no, certainly. So our big project at the minute is the Maritime Mile. John has mentioned it. So this is 1 navigational mile of water and 10 kilometres of public realm, really public access to the city's waterfront. So we're really trying to develop it for a blueway for the city. And the key part of that is connecting it back into the city centre. Mm-hmm. So our waterfront is only a 10-minute walk from the city centre. So in terms of the core retail and everything that the heart of the city centre has gone through with COVID and just even before that, we think that part of the whole solution and the success of Belfast working together as a city is really embracing its waterfront and having that connectivity along that stretch. So we have brought in a team. We've worked in partnership with Belfast Harbour, with Belfast City Council, with all the players on site, Titanic Quarter Limited, and we have scoped out 17 projects along the waterfront. So they range from basic landscape improvements to the public realm, to new bridges across the water, again reinforcing our connectivity on both sides of the river, to water taxis so that we can actually get across the river. And another big priority for us is the animation of the waterfront. So how do we develop festivals and events and curate the waterfront in a way that there's surprises, that every time that you come, that it's a 24-hour experience whenever the visitors and the local people actually use the waterfront. So we've worked very closely with Belfast City Council on re-looking at the Belfast Maritime Festival. It's an annual event. It has attracted about 100,000 visitors every year. So our plan is to turn that into a biannual event. And really what we're aiming is to attract 1 million visitors a year. So that's really on the horizon. Over the next 10 years, we hope to grow that significantly. And this is all happening in the backdrop of lots of other investments. So we have a new aquarium that's going to come to the waterfront. It's got approved through planning. As John says, there's new hotels coming to the waterfront. Again, there's a 276-bedroomed hotel, family hotel that will be built right across from Titanic Belfast. We have a Titanic whiskey distillery that is due to come on stream on our waterfront. Like in total, we reckon that there's about £1.5 billion of expenditure expected on our waterfront over the next 15 to 20 years. And that will attract an additional 900,000 users, people living, people working, people visiting the waterfront.
And you talked there about the Maritime Festival. Anybody that's been in Belfast when the tall ships has been on it can see the draw that something built around the waterfront can bring. Is that the kind of thing that you're hoping to re-energise?
That's it. So the tall ships was every 5 years. So we think if we can do the Maritime Festival every other year, and we're also working across the province with Derry as well. So they have a very successful Maritime Festival. So it just means that every other year Northern Ireland will have this amazing maritime event.
And really looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. Tell me, you've talked very eloquently there about what we have to offer. What sets us apart from other cities with a maritime, with a waterfront that builds it around? What makes Belfast different?
I think for us, it goes back to what John said about our stories, and it's about the people of Belfast, and it's about the communities that live on the waterfront. It's about that connectivity that people of the city have to their place. I think we have these amazing brands. Of course, we've got the Titanic brand. It's international. And it just seems to be that every generation discovers that story, and it's one of the greatest stories that we have to tell. But that wasn't our only big industry. We were once the biggest shipyard in the world. We had the biggest route works in the world. We were, heading the way on the whole of the linen industry. We were the biggest producers of whiskey in the world at one stage. So. And that's not just our history, it's now also part of our future. One of the big ambitions for the city is the whole innovation district that's developing. And the innovation district is actually on our waterfront. So we are now marrying tourism, heritage and innovation.
Super. You talk of the people of Belfast. Let's talk to a person of Visit Belfast, Jerry Lennon. How do we find Belfast cultural tourism offering at the minute? Because it's been a pretty tumultuous year over the last, actually it's more than a year, maybe 14 months or so.
Yeah. It goes without saying, it's been horrendous. It's been a traumatic experience for individuals, societies, cities and sectors. But just listening to John and Kerry there, you can't help have an element of optimism, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. And Belfast people, Belfast City, and our tourism, hospitality and cultural sector is nothing if it isn't determined, resilient, innovative and creative, as we've heard down through the years. And we've never come through anything like this, but there's no doubt that those are the attributes that will ensure that we as a city bounce back, not just to the same levels of 2019, but actually higher and better. And as John said, that isn't based on some sort of romantic optimism. If you coldly look at the performance up to 2019, in 2019 we had 1.7 million visitors, £500 million spent in the city, but that was a 70% growth in 5 years. 70% growth in 5 years. And that was a catalyst for £250 million of private sector investment in hotels. Okay, so at the same time, Lonely Planet says we are the #1 place to visit in the world. National Geographic says we're the rising star of city breaks in Europe. CNIT Forum says we're the #1 conference city in the UK. That speaks to we have a very relevant, competitive offering for our closest to home markets. And there's a shift, because of the pandemic, there's a shift to closer to home markets, which feeds into our strengths. So there is solid reason to be optimistic as that we can build back and build back stronger.
You mentioned there that we're looking to closer to home markets.
Yeah.
I suppose the last year has allowed us to refocus on that domestic and indeed the ROI market. How has that kind of changed us, and what sort of lessons can we learn from that experience? Because we only need to look around to see that there are a lot more domestic holiday makers around, and we mentioned Wayne Rooney's here. I suppose he is domestic.
Visiting French relatives, obviously.
French,
Well, the pandemic allowed or forced upon us and every sector and every organisation the need to pause, reevaluate, and think before you push the reset button. And that's what we've done. And there's no doubt about it that there's a whole paradigm shift for the business environment at the moment, and that is about bringing a better balance between driving for economic growth, sustaining the local environment, and focusing on the well-being of local communities. And that permeates down into tourism trends. And there's 3 big super trends that we see affecting the travel industry at the moment. And that's around a greater, more conscious or awareness of social and environmental issues, safety and health, focus on people, not necessarily their particular safety, but more into an environment that they're familiar with and comfortable with, but also a desire to immerse themselves in destinations and get under the skin of where they are and understand and do what locals do, meet locals. So we have to pivot our offering. We have to dial up our strengths in each of those areas. And Belfast is very well placed, largely because we're a young, emerging destination. And the point that Kerry made, our biggest offering is our authentic stories, ourselves. And the big issue and the big benefit for us is this, that 70% of our market was from the CTA, the Common Travel Area. The international market was at best 15 to 17% of our visitor numbers and visitor spend. So our biggest markets are going to grow. And if you consider that in 2019, 42% of our overnight stays came from GB, and that was a 70% growth. So we are a growing market, a growing product, an emerging product in a growing market. Now that 42% of GB visitors, 700,000 visitors, represented less than 1% of the domestic GB travel audience. So if we nudge that from 1% to 2%, that will have a huge impact. And it is going to happen. Republic of Ireland, our other big market that you referred to, we secured 12% of the people that stayed overnight in 2019 were from the Republic of Ireland. That represented only 5% of the domestic, the island of Ireland domestic travel. So if we nudge that by 1%, again, the demand for accommodation or the capacity that we have won't be enough for the demand that's going to be there.
So again, it's all about potential. It's about how we can drive the sector forward.
Absolutely. Well, occupancy rates in 2019 were 72%. So if we grow our market share of the GB and the ROI, which is clearly going to happen in the next year, 18 months, then we'll need more accommodation.
And nearly domestic traveller to domestic tourism, they've been re-educated on what Belfast has to offer. So yeah, things may go back to normal, but they'll know, maybe we can nip into.
We increase our market share of our closer to home markets, and when the international travel comes back, we'll gain that again. So the market's going to go up. The target of $1 billion that John talked about within 10 years is definitely doable.
We're looking at investment in the cultural tourism sector as part of this talk today. As it returns to health, are there any developments kind of on the horizon that they could get involved in?
Well, I think John and Kerry have outlined them very well, but I think the key thing is that the business case for investing in cultural tourism is without doubt. It's a no-brainer, and Belfast in particular is a classic example of that. When you consider that the investment in Titanic Belfast, and Kerry alluded to it, 38% of all the people who came to Northern Ireland came because of Titanic Belfast. 16% of all the people who came to Northern Ireland in 2019 because of Game of Thrones. So the business case for investing in cultural tourism assets is without doubt. And there's a pipeline of this from the Belfast City Regional Deal, the cultural strategy, the work that Kerry's doing and others. We have a string of cultural tourism developments coming down the pipe that just add to our product offering in a growing market. So it adds to our optimism that the tourism numbers and visitor spend is just going to grow.
And John touched on some of the investment in the tourism assets in the city by the council. How important is that?
That's huge. The council has led the way in terms of investing in cultural tourism assets. Initially the Waterfront Hall and then the ICC, investing in Titanic Belfast, the events that you referred to as well, which create civic pride and international PR. It is absolutely essential that investment continues, and the cultural strategy, the city deal that we talked about, even the Northern Ireland's economic strategy, all reference the importance of investing in the culture if we are to create a society that we enjoy living in, but one that's going to attract inward investment.
Jerry, thanks for that. Some great insight there. I want to turn to some culture now. Susan, before we turn to you, we do have a short video to show.
It's been years, not always kind, that have built this place, pebble by pebble, rock by book by bar, hand over hand over hand. There was industry, there was clergy, there was a bang, there was a boom. There was nothing. And yet, there's still something in the streets, round corners, in stone. Maybe it's or maybe it's like when Gary sang about the blinking lights, or Van Morrison, Champagne Eyes, or better still, Ronnie and Brian screaming big time. Late September, the slight scent of summer still singing in the air after June, July, March. Smokestacks, singed backs, and a pint of stout, please, even though it's too damn hot. Skin tones, every colour you can imagine, and a night you can bring your mum to. A night so good, you just overheard, that it doesn't even seem like Belfast at all. More like Europe.
You've got a flavour there of culture night, but truly, unless you've been to it, it's hard to explain it. It's a fantastic night, and it gives us a flavour of what you get up to during the day job. And to many of us and to many tourists, the work that your organisation does, it really does make Belfast what it is. How do you go about bottling that creativity and culture which this city prides itself on?
I'm not sure it's so much about bottling, though. Looking at the video, it does feel that, and it's always a nice analogy with the whiskey story that Kelly said earlier. It's as much about capturing and promoting and nurturing and really helping the cultural sector here sort of have a showcase for everything that it does and for all the kind of talent and creativity that it has. And I mean, the Trust was established in 2012. We're a charity as well. And what we really do is try and give a voice to the cultural sector in the Cathedral Quarter, which is the cultural heart of the city, no question about it. And to sort of try and make sure that culture is considered whenever there's development happening, the cultural voice is represented. If there's, big public realm, if, using public spaces. So just really to try and make sure that the cultural sector and the value of arts to the local community and the wider economy is kind of at the forefront of everybody's minds in the city, really.
Perhaps for anybody out there that doesn't know Belfast, can you give us a flavour of the Cathedral Quarter and its creativity?
Yeah, it's one of those areas that is, I think a lot of cities have. It was an old sort of industrial area. And then you have that sort of the age-old story. The artists move in, and then it becomes really creative. And that's the Cathedral Quarter is our version of that. There's really brilliant street art. There's some great cultural organisations. Bits of it are raw and edgy. Bits of it are really polished and exciting. Brilliant restaurants, brilliant bars. Real authentic sort of flavour of Belfast. And again, as Jerry said, if you want to get under the skin of a city, you go to somewhere like the Cathedral Quarter, which is where you really get a flavour of what the city is like.
Yeah, and we've seen how, you're running events all year round, but that we've seen what Culture Night brings to the city. How do you build on the momentum that night brings?
Well, it's been challenging the last couple of years, obviously. The video was from 2019. We had over 2 days, about 100,000 people. I mean, it's simply not possible to do that this year. And last year, in fact, we did a digital version of the event, which still was really, really popular. But for this year, because of the COVID situation, and also because the time with COVID has actually given us a bit of a chance to reflect and to think about the event and how we want to take it forward. And for me, it's really exciting because in some ways, what we want to do is actually use it as a platform to showcase the city as a creative canvas, to put on large-scale spectacle-based events, outdoor-based events, site-specific events that are a real significant attraction for visitors and for people in Northern Ireland and for everybody, really. So we're at the beginning of a bit of a journey, and 2021 is we're dipping the toe in the water, really, with that. And informed by feedback and by all our thinking, and also by what we can do with COVID and likely restrictions at the end of September, we've created what we're going to call the City Garden, which is we're going to basically turn Cathedral Gardens in Ryder Square, which is in the heart of the Cathedral Quarter by the cathedral, into a sort of a magical outdoor garden for the weekend for the city. And people can just come along and dip in and dip out and enjoy it, and then go off and enjoy what there is with the rest of the city. So it's really exciting to be able to do it. And it obviously also taps into, things like people have loved their gardens over the last year. We've all maybe started valuing slightly different things. The importance of the environment as well is a key thing, really. So it's exciting planning for it, actually.
Really, really exciting. It also helps regenerate certain areas of the city, by bringing that in and helps everything around it, I assume.
Yeah. No, I mean, one of the key things that we really care about is actually using culture to regenerate. And whether that is a big regeneration project like, the Destination Hub, ultimately, which it is as well as a tourism project, or whether it's something that the MAC that has helped to actually regenerate, that area of the Cathedral Quarter, or whether it is all the little pop-up shops and, the sort of people like the Black Box and the OEA who are taking over existing buildings and doing their work there. So, I mean, culture has been a key force in regenerating cities for years. And I think, it's a really important force, and it needs to be in the discussions.
Can you give us a flavour of some of the other kind of festivals and events that you have running throughout the year that sort of wrap around?
Yeah, I think wrap around is really good. We have an incredibly strong cultural asset base. This year notwithstanding, but obviously things are slightly different. But I have to say, even so, the last year, the cultural sector has been amazing, and how innovative they've been, flipping to digital, getting international audiences, really kind of showcasing what Northern Ireland can do across the world. So I think there's been, even though it's been incredibly challenging, I think there's been some really strong things that have come out of the last 18 months or so. But I mean, for a live experience, it's like literally pick a calendar, stick a pin in the calendar any day, and you will find something great to do in Belfast. And we've got a mix of everything, really, whether it's, raw and edgy, like a street art tour, or, busking on the street, or, more kind of grassroots culture, or whether it's something that's a little bit more ambitious and challenging, like programming at the MAC, which is our sort of city centre arts centre, or whether you're interested in history, you've got the amazing Ulster Museum, or whether, you're interested in heritage or really kind of world class. I mean, we've a beautiful restoration of the Grand Opera House, which is literally just opened, which is absolutely stunning. We've also got the amazing Ulster Orchestra. We've got the Lyric Theatre, which is even doing a stellar work and bringing international audiences. So while it's a small city, I think it's an incredibly rich city in terms of culture, and there really is something year round. We always used to describe it as a city of festivals, and I think it is. And the festivals and events are a real strong point. I think another dimension, and Jerry touched on it as well, and it sort of does link back to the sort of idea of culture and creativity being in our DNA. Is screen tourism has obviously really sort of taken off, and there's a Line of Duty tour I see this week. Which is an interesting one, which I'm sure lots of people would love, and maybe given some of the fans in the royal family, that's an idea. But we've also got we've got big productions at the minute. We've got School of Good and Evil for Netflix. We've got Titanic Studios, and we've got Dungeons and Dragons shooting out at Paint Hall. And I already saw on Twitter lots of people going, "Oh my goodness, they're filming Dungeons and Dragons at Carrickfergus Castle." So I think those kind of opportunities, because of the strength and the sort of success of our film and television industries, are going to keep on coming. And one of the reasons I think those film and television industries are so strong is because of the really strong thread of culture and creativity and storytelling that weaves through all of Belfast.
It's a really good point you bring up, because next door to us here where we're filming are the Loop Studios, and Charlie Theron has been filming quite recently, and and that level of culture around the whole film industry is something that's new to Belfast. Well, relatively new, but I suppose it has been here for a dozen or so years.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And I think one of the interesting elements of the Belfast Destination Hub is the potential of a Belfast Film Centre.
Yeah,
that's aligned with that as well. So that is not just, that'll be much more than a cinema. That's going to be basically a home and a real focal point for the film and television industry here, and for really developing that talent going forward, which will then, it's a continuum, keep feeding, keep growing, and then attracts everybody from all over the world.
Yeah. What's the last year been like for you? Because you're involved in culture, you're involved in events. I mean, it must have been so frustrating initially, but as you say, artists and yourselves have had to pivot and change your offering, but have probably for the better in the future.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? And I think it's really brought people together. And I think that in some ways, I think it's really demonstrated the resilience. There's an awful lot of really talented, really committed, really passionate people who work, really knowledgeable, professional, all of those, lovely descriptors, but who work in the cultural industry. And I think that they're really determined to make it work. And they're really determined to really kind of be a sort of a strong asset for the city and for culture and for Northern Ireland. And I think that, we've been involved in, everybody's been having lots of meetings and talking about how we move forward out of this. And, it's absolutely challenging for people. It really is. And the future is still quite uncertain. But, there's a real determination there, and actually a real confidence, because I think everybody really believes in what they're doing, and they know that we all know that we're doing something really good. So that's sort of, I think, really like a strong thread that everybody I talk to, that's how they feel.
And in many ways, that digital aspect that they maybe didn't have, or artists didn't have to their string to their bow as such, that will probably help in the future.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, in some ways, we've established audiences worldwide for a lot of sort of things that possibly only local audiences would have experienced before. So there's a real potential there, I think, to build on that. Yeah. And there's quite a few of our festivals have got really international reputation now. And as I said, came on to say about the Lyric Theatre, they're producing work here, it's going across the world. So I think there's a really strong asset base to build on, which isn't just about the events and the festivals, but it's also about the content and how we get it out to the world, and then using that to draw people back.
Yeah, really strong offer. And as I say, I really do think the work that you do adds so much to the city. I want to open up the conversation a little bit more now. But I want to stay with you, Susan, just on an issue I think everyone can probably pitch in on, City of Culture in 2023. Can you fill us in a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, this is really exciting. I mean, it is. It feels like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I don't mean that in a money way. I just mean that in a lovely, lovely, hopeful way. Yeah, so it really emerged out of the bid for European Capital of Culture, which, because Brexit nipped in the bud. So the City Council, I think, incredibly bravely decided we've done a lot of thinking and planning about this. Let's just go for it anyway and still have 2023 as a designated year of culture. And it's interesting that Leeds, who were another city who were up for the same bid, have actually decided to do exactly the same thing. It's also been interesting to watch because obviously Coventry has just sort of launched its UK City of Culture programme. So, there's been a lot of press for that. So I think it's a really important thing for Belfast to do. It's also really closely aligned with the cultural strategy. It was a real ambition with that. And as well as investing in the sort of the foundation of the arts and culture sector here, all the festivals, all the venues, all the events, all the artists, almost most importantly, because if it wasn't for the creative people, we wouldn't really have anything. But as well as that, there's a couple of headline projects that are really coming through. They're incredibly exciting. So the first, which I think the bid has just gone in, is UNESCO, bid for UNESCO City of Music status. And, Belfast, Northern Ireland, incredibly strong musical like history. So I think that's really exciting. There's also One Young World conference, which is coming, which is really brilliant. And I think, really forward looking and really can make us think about, right, what is the future going to be for these young people? And then obviously the destination hub as well is linking in with that or emerging out of that. And then the other one that is really exciting and possibly a little bit bonkers, but sounds lovely, is the idea of a programme based around the idea of an urban forest.
No.
I don't think it means planting trees down the middle of Royal Avenue, but who can say? So, but all of that as well, it was the highlights. And then there's hopefully lots of other projects that'll be kind of dotted in around that. So I understand the council, I think, are appointing a creative team at the moment to take that forward, but it's a real opportunity, I think, to let the culture in the city shine and to showcase it to the rest of the world.
Yeah, John, it must be something that the City Council is looking forward to in the future.
Yeah, it's hugely important for City Council, but for the city and the region. As we've said throughout this morning, our tourism market is a new burgeoning market. We're investing in our product. We have a great cultural sector, as Susan has explained, but sometimes you just need to showcase that. You do need to stand up on a plinth and shout to the wider world. And we think 2023 is the absolute perfect time to be doing that. And it's the perfect time to be attracting people to Belfast, attracting investors to Belfast, and attracting visitors and tourists. And if I'm completely honest, where we are right now, I think we could all do with a little bit of a break and something to look forward to. So it's been a little bit of an accident that is coming on the back of a global pandemic, but it's not an unfortunate accident, and we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, but both you guys must be looking forward to it because it'll generate a lot of interest.
Listening to Susan there, we heard the words determination, creative, innovative. I mean, the cultural sector of Belfast epitomizes all of those, and just listening there, who wouldn't want to come to visit Belfast to visit, or who wouldn't want to invest in a city like that? I mean, the culture and tourism creates the reputation of a city. It is at the forefront of the marketing of a city. It creates its attractiveness. That's how important they are to the future well-being of our citizens and our inward investment. And why wouldn't the council want to invest in that? And although some people say that might make my job a wee bit easier selling Belfast, it isn't that easy, guys. You still have to get them here.
Very good.
I think Belfast loves to party as well, and the one good thing, looking back when Titanic Belfast was first opened, we had our Time, Our Place campaign, and then the year after that we had the Giro d'Italia. And if there's anything the public and the local people really got involved, for Giro d'Italia, everything turned pink. And just the thought of having, another big celebration event in 2023. And certainly it links the waterfront area again. We have the amazing capacity on the Titanic slipways to take huge scale music events. And so it's just another way of connecting all parts of the city to work together and work in partnership to achieve success.
Super. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
John.
no, and I think it's hugely important for another reason. Belfast has of recent years had a very successful history of attracting foreign direct investment. In fact, we're the second most successful region in Western Europe for attracting foreign direct investment from the US. We're the number one destination for US cybersecurity companies. And we see that as growing. Actually, during the pandemic, we have had a number of transactions that have totaled more than 1,500 jobs. Only yesterday, we learned that PwC are setting up an advanced engineering and research centre with 800 new positions. And investments like the City deal, where we're building a research and development infrastructure and then an innovation ecosystem, the Innovation District, provides a huge opportunity for businesses to be sited in Belfast. That obviously provides opportunities for investors, but we think all of the forecasts are suggesting that the trajectory of growth that we're on in our economy, we will need people to come to fuel that economic growth. And part of getting people to come and live in Belfast is making it a really attractive, fun, exciting, dynamic place to live. So it's not just about having great talent here for investors to come and use. It's about having a great place for those people to live, work, and build families. And that's part of Susan and Carrie and Jerry's work is helping City Council and all of the partners make Belfast a really exciting place to live.
Yeah, nothing can grow in silos. It needs everything to rise with it. We've had a couple of questions in from the audience, would you believe? And one of them, John, is to you. And it's, what are the key opportunities for investors?
Well, I mean, I think we've spoken, I mean, of two opportunities already. One, of course, is in that investment in the surrounding infrastructure to support the growth in tourism that I hope we've convinced people today is undoubtedly going to happen, whether that be in attractions, whether that be in hotels, whether that be in hospitality businesses, or whatever that might be. The market for investment in Class A office product is already well established in Belfast and has been fed by Indigenous business growth and that huge growth in foreign direct investment. And we expect that to continue. And we expect that to continue at a pace because of investments such as the Belfast City Region deal. But one thing that I haven't spoke about is the opportunities in Resi for investment. Belfast, when you look at comparable cities, has a relatively low level of city centre population. Now, quite honestly, that is a product of that period that we went through, which is the Troubles. But now we have a city with this incredible cultural fabric that is a really exciting place to live. We have this huge amount of inward investment coming in from technology companies like Rapid7, like PwC, and so on. The people that work in those companies often don't want to live in suburbs. They want to live in the metropolitan, in the core centre. They want to be able to experience a city. So we need to build the residential development as part of the city where they can live and work. That's already happened to a large portion brought forward by the Belfast Harbour, but we need to do more of that. The fortunate position that Belfast is in is, unlike other cities, we actually have land available in this city. We have a significant portion of land that is under ownership by public agencies. We are in a process now of assembling those land packages with partners and essentially putting out development briefs. So you have a ready-made kit for investors to come in and be able to access that. We also have a significant amount of building stock that can be repurposed for Resi. So we think there's a really exciting opportunity also in the residential market in Belfast.
And that's a really unique opportunity there, that there is the land there to develop on. There's another question just about, are you looking for a development partner for the Destination Hub?
We will be developing the Destination Hub with partners. There will be a range of competitions linked to the integrated design team that will be released in due course. So I would ask anybody who's interested in Destination Hub, get in touch. We're happy to tell you about all of those opportunities as they come forward.
Super, thank you. Jerry, I want to touch on something that I know you guys have been working on a lot, and that's business tourism and the business tourism strategy. How important is that sector to Belfast? Because in the past, it really did grow.
Oh, it's been huge growth along with all the other sectors. £300 million of visitor spend as a result of conference and business tourism in the last 10 years, largely because of the catalytic investment of ICC and the Waterfront Hall by Belfast City Council gave us the kit to allow us to be competitive within the UK conference market. But the importance of business tourism is that any business needs a balanced portfolio of product, and business tourists and conferences give us the midweek business, Monday to Thursday. They spend more, and also then the winter months from October through to March. So we have a nice balance between day trips and leisure visitors. The key thing for this, we've been really successful. We have a pipeline of about 350 leads of conferences that fit into our city for the next 10 years, worth £400 million to the city. So we're going at a nice steady pace, but the new business tourism strategy, largely taking its lead from the economic strategy Invest Northern Ireland's one about a 10x, a 10 times size economy. We want to put our strengths on steroids. We want to invest in business tourism. So our target is very simply this. We want to double the number of international conferences in the city per year by 2030. And that'll mean tripling the number of conference delegates in the city by 2030. Now, if you consider that we were at 72% occupancy rate in 2019, tripling the number of conference delegates by 2030 clearly means, back to John's point, that we're on an upward trajectory. We need investment in tourism infrastructure, in the enabling infrastructure around the hubs that we talked about, accommodation, transport. So the projections for business tourism is that would bring in about an extra £300 million a year into the city, £500 million contribution to the GVA. So, and we're confident that we have the kit, we have the cultural offering that's there. Who wouldn't want to bring a conference to Belfast when the delegates could experience a city like that?
Exactly. Our time's nearly up. John, I want to just give the last word to you. What would you say to potential investors out there that are listening today?
Well, I think it's a huge opportunity for investors. I mean, it's always good business to get into a market early and get into a market early that, in my opinion, is undervalued. When you look at the land acquisition costs in Belfast compared to other comparable cities in the UK, it is low. So you have a low cost of entry into a market that we hope we have convinced, and certainly we are convinced, is going to experience exponential growth over the next number of years. So I think that's a fantastic story for investors. And I think the other, where those conditions may exist in other places, you don't have the asset of land. In Belfast, there is land available. That is a unique proposition in itself. And you have a range of partners that are willing to help assemble that land and develop that land. There is a hunger here in Belfast for an investment. There is a desire, and there is a product. So I'd invite investors to come here and see that.
Nice way to end. John, thank you. Susan, Kerry, Jerry, thank you very much. Our time's up. I think you'll agree that the investment case for Belfast is well and truly cemented by the city's unique cultural and tourism offering. I'd like to thank this brilliant panel today, and I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully that's given you a flavour of Belfast, and if you haven't experienced the city, I really would urge you to come and see, particularly Culture Night and the Maritime Mile. See for yourself what all the fuss is about, and particularly come and invest, because it really is an investable city. Thank you for that. Have a lovely day, and I'll hand back to Ross.
Thanks very much, David, and thanks all speakers. Really interesting, Great, a great way to start the morning. That had everything: whiskey, tall ships, Game of Thrones, and Line of Duty. What's not to like? I'm booking my trip now. Thanks very much for that, guys. We've that's the end of this event. Obviously, we have a lot more to go today. We have starting now, sustainable high streets. Then at 11. Future community engagement, and also another session about the Innovation Core, which is Harlow and its surrounding districts. And then this afternoon, we have a session about the garden communities, and then one this evening about ESG. Then even more tomorrow, including one where you'll see me hosting again at Waltham Forest, but lots more. Pop off to the website, have a look, register, and we'll see you at one of the events, I hope. That's it from us here in Belfast. Thank you for attending. Thank you to all the speakers. Goodbye.